What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Player One versus the World for another episode of Life After Strange. I'm here with Hannah Prichard, who plays Hannah in Life is Strange 2. Hannah, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm not too bad. 2021 hasn't kicked off the way I thought it would. When I posted a previous episode from here, I was like, maybe 2021 will bring me better times. And this is February we're recording, and it's like, I'm like,
It still
optimism.
hasn't.
Yeah.
I know.
So I'm keeping optimistic, but we're here for the show. I'm really happy to have you. Really excited to talk to you about Life is Strange. And I feel like I kind of want to start with one point, which is Hannah Prichard, Hannah Reyome from Life is Strange 2. That must just be the dream scenario of a character sharing your name.
Oh, 100%. And I think, I know that I've said this in an interview in the past, but I truly believe in to tell myself that they named the character after me. Because when I did the audition for it, which I actually think I auditioned for two characters actually for this. I think Hannah was actually the second one. But it was not the name of Hannah, which granted they change the names a lot of the time anyway when you do an audition. Mm-hmm. But then when I found out the name was Hannah, I was like, totally, it's because they cast me. They named her Hannah. They were like, that's a perfect name for this character. We're going with it. Which I'm sure is not true. But I tell myself.
You never know, because in that audition, were there any cameras when you were doing it?
No, I wasn't even in Los Angeles when I auditioned. I'm in Kentucky right now during pandemic quarantine. And so I was actually in Kentucky when I got the audition, and I just recorded it on my phone.
Right, okay, because I know some of the actors had experiences where they went to a place for the casting, and then they had cameras there as well, so they've taken some of their likenesses for the characters. I can't confirm that, because it's kind of loosely interpreted, because if you look at some of the actors and look at some of their characters, they look very similar. And some of them have said that cameras were there whilst they were doing it, so they have this idea that likeness might have been taken. And I think from all the interviews I've done so far, that might be the case. But obviously some, in your case, they're being remote, so I can see it from both sides.
That's super cool. I didn't know that. I actually didn't know what it looked like until I think one of my last days of recording, actually. I had no idea what she looked like. Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's mad, isn't it? We'll come on to Hannah, though, in a bit, because I want to move away from that Hannah. We're going to talk about everyone's favourite Hannah, which is you. Of course. What made you want to come into acting? What was it that set you on this path?
Oh, man. It's just kind of was always the path I wanted since I was a kid. So I don't think I don't know. I loved it. It was kind of always like a extracurricular activity that I preferred or whatever. And then I think when I got in high school and started taking more serious classes, and started actually started being complimented in some capacity as more than just musical theater, because that's all we did growing up was musical theater. But when acting started being something that people were seeing as you're a good actor, I was like, oh, that's a possibility that I could actually, maybe that's a realistic dream to have. You know what I mean? When before it just kind of felt like silly willy-nilly. And then I don't know, people responding or respecting or seeing me as possibly being able to do that, it became a realized oh yeah, no, I can do this. Let's do it.
That's really cool. And with acting, obviously, you have so many different paths you can go down in terms of voice acting in films, TV. Did you have any interest in video games when you were younger?
Honestly, I am so not a video game person. I was addicted to Crash Bandicoot, though. When PS2 and Crash Bandicoot came out, I was addicted. That and Spyro, but those were the only two games truly that I got into. I'm getting into Mario Kart a little bit with the kids that I babysit for. They like to play it, and now I'm I actually like playing this with you. Maybe I don't know. I wouldn't.
We've seen Crash Bandicoot have a bit of a renaissance recently in Spyro as well, so you should just keep an eye out in case you can get a roll in that, because that'll be
I know, and I threw away my PS2 when I was a kid like a fool, and now I'm wow, everybody in my family is just I can't believe you threw that thing away. And I didn't even tell anybody. I just threw it away. I was a big cleaner as a kid, and I was we got to get rid of this. And now I wish I had it back.
Well, you never know. You might be able to get another one at some point. But I asked the video game question because looking back in your career now, like where you are, do you ever expect that you'd ever go down that path of like entering a video game?
No. Oh my gosh, no. I didn't even think, honestly, that I would really do voiceover at all. And honestly, voiceover just kind of like found me. I didn't pursue it. A lot of people kept telling me you have a good voice. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And like, I only knew voiceover acting to be of like creating different voices. So I was like, I don't think that I can do it. I don't know that. I don't think that I have that skill, but yeah, it just sort of happened that way, which is really awesome. I absolutely love doing it. It's kind of like the best of all worlds.
No, absolutely. And it shows with Life is Strange 2 because we're going to address the elephant in the room, which is Life is Strange 2. And you touched on it before, but what was that audition process like? Take us back to that day that you actually like submitted for it.
So, okay, so the first time, I'll tell you the first time I auditioned too, because it was my first ever voiceover audition that like was professional that I had gotten. And I knew the guy who had called me in for it. And he was like, it was for, I'm pretty sure it was for Cassidy. Was originally my first audition. And it was months before I got the one for Hannah. And he randomly reached out to me because he knew I was from Kentucky. And he was like, there's a character I think you might be right for. She has a little bit of an accent, but she also sings. Can you sing? And I was like, wow, I wouldn't call myself a singer, but like, we'll give it a go. And I was so anxious about recording. Like we had to record a little first aid kit song. I think that's what they're called, right?
It's Cassidy. It's Cassidy.
Yeah. And I was horrified, and I had just gotten a new dog, and my dog squeaked his toy the entire time that I was trying to poorly sing this audition. It was horrifying. Needless to say, I obviously did not get cast as Cassidy, but they called me back later to do Hannah, and I was in Kentucky when I did it. And when I first read it, I had no idea. I knew it was for a video game. I knew it was for a popular video game. But I don't know video games at all. So all I saw was that I was reading for a character that was topless in the scene. And I was like, what in the hell am I potentially auditioning for? I have no clue. This could potentially go poorly, but it wasn't. And I honestly, still didn't really understand the project until the end of it. And they were like, oh, wait, you don't know what this game is? We'll show you what it is. And I was like, cool, good to know. It looks cool.
No, that's incredible because that's definitely Cassidy if it's First Aid Kit, the song that you were singing. And then
I think they played the clip that they showed me to like show me what Life is Strange was. And they kept going, that's your character. But I kept hearing Cassidy's voice, and it was so similar to the way that I sounded in the other that I was like, wait, is that me wait, do I have an accent that's coming through? And I was very confused.
Oh no, I can completely understand, and I feel it's fitting as well that the dog squeaks as well because obviously Hannah has a dog, and it seems like it was meant to be. But that's a really interesting story. That's how it ended up, and you mentioned it before that you found out that you found out what Hannah looked like towards the end of recording. Was that when you were doing the lines? Because based on the experience I had with Orvalle when he was on here, he said that he didn't see the character until he was in the episode 3 when it came out. So you actually saw Hannah before the game came out.
Yeah, because I finally, at a certain point, because I got used to going, because usually when we go in the studio to record, like we go straight into our booth and like, the engineers are on the other side of the wall and you don't really like interact with them much aside from like direction. But like, I don't know, I'm awkward. So anytime that we would have break, I would like go in and hang out with them and ask questions. So it got to a point like after a couple times of going in there and we would just be having small talk that I was like, guys, I don't know what this project is. Like, I have no idea what this game is. And they were shocked that I didn't know. I think the first episode had just come out or the trailer for it had just come out. And they were like, we'll go ahead and show you. And they showed me and kept trying to point to me which one I was.
No, well, I'm glad that you actually went a bit more like on top of it because people don't know like their characters until like, the game came out and like they just like, didn't ask any questions. So like it's pretty helpful that you went down that road of like asking them the questions.
And when I saw the character, I was like, oh man, I wish I would have seen her at the beginning though, because maybe I actually would have understood more what they were trying to get out of me. You know what I mean? But can't do anything about it.
Exactly. And like, what was the impressions of Hannah when we saw what she looked like?
Well, one, I was like, are we sure that I'm right for this part? because she just seemed so much cooler and tougher. You know what I mean? When I saw a photo of her and I was like, I mean, I'm cool and I'm tough, but I mean, like, she's like cool and tough in a different way. You know what I mean? So I was a little bit surprised. And then I was surprised. I couldn't tell if we had the same ethnicity. And I was like, do you want me to have like, should I have had an accent? Have we miscast? Like, are you sure that you have cast the correct person? And obviously I don't know what anybody's ethnicity in the show is, you know what I mean? And I don't know if they ever described those backgrounds in that sense. I don't think I ever said what Hannah's is. I think based on what I've read, so I think based on what Daniel says in the game, he says that she might be Native American. But beyond that, yeah, right. Which I think I assumed that because of the, like ritual, the markings or whatnot. Her tattoos were clearly symbols for something, and I was like, I don't know that I have been cast appropriately. But either way, here we are, and it's too late now. So that was really my first response. But I wasn't going to go down a rabbit hole with them as if they appropriately cast me in that sense. It was too late.
Yeah, he'd be like, it's a job. It's like, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and just like start recording these lines.
Then they'll have like a whole existential crisis that they're like, you know what I mean? It'll become a whole thing. So whatever. That was my first response.
I mean, like, as you said, I think like, I think that Native American thing, she does look a bit different, but you did a fantastic job. And obviously you're here. And that's a testament to where you got to with this. And you mentioned it before, and I know this as well, like this was your first VO project. And in that recording session, you worked with Philip Bache mainly because he's the VO director. What was that experience like working with him?
I love Phil. Phil is just an awesome dude. He loves to talk video games, loves to talk Star Wars. Like he's just a good chill dude. He's a great guy. And I actually, because I had done with like I guess their sister studio or some capacity, I had done voiceover dubbing before with them, like right before or whatever. But working with Phil was a little different because Phil like really liked to watch what I was doing versus like just listen, like, which I thought was interesting. I'd never had anybody do that before. And at one point it actually made me uncomfortable. I was like, Phil, why are you watching me? Like, why are you watching me? Am I doing something weird? And he's like, no, I like to watch the actors and see if, you know what I mean? If what they're doing is a reflection of what they're saying, and watching each actor's process, which I thought was interesting. And he would do things with you as well. Like if he would be like, okay, you're giving a toast or a cheers or something, like Phil would be over there doing it too. Like, I don't know. He was a great dude.
No, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that he was doing that as well, because I've heard some remarkable stories about how each actor's had like a very interesting experience with him, like based on their character. So I completely understand that would be a very positive experience. And with this as well, because obviously Hannah's the main character in Free in terms of like her appearance. How long was that studio session that you did for it? Was it all in one sitting as well?
No, I actually, man, it's been so long, but I feel like we actually only did one episode like a month. And we would come in, like I would come in, I think for about 2-hour sessions, maybe 4 hours within the week, but we would really only do one episode a month or every other month. Like there wasn't really a set schedule because the episodes were coming in at different paces.
Right. Okay. That does make sense. And, we mentioned it a little bit before, but you're a lovely person to talk to. But then with no, of course. But with our Hannah character, she's a lot more brash and like the standoff tension with Sean, you could cut with a knife in the room. How did you bring that side of the personality out in the acting, especially working with Philip as well, to bring that kind of like edginess to the character?
Honestly, I mean, I still have that in me as well. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? There are definitely moments where I can be the asshole in the room. You know what I mean? So I just felt like some of the things that, honestly, some of the times when she seemed the harshest and the coldest were the easier ones for me to relate to, because everybody has those inner dialogues of being in situations where it's like, dude, how do you not get this? You know what I mean? And like, I felt like that was constantly Hannah's motivation, or, underlying, was that she came from a place of like, no bullshit. Like, we don't have to have surface level conversation. Like, I have no problem being completely honest with you. And I don't know. I actually resonated with it.
That makes sense. And with this VO session, I imagine they were on your own when you were doing them.
That's yes, correct. So which I had no idea what I was doing the first time I wanted to record this. I didn't even know, like, probably into like the second episode what exactly I was doing or if I was doing it correctly. But basically, they just gave us like our lines. Like, I had no idea what anybody responded. I didn't have any audio back. I would just like go through and say each line. Like, I had no idea if they were even connected, to be quite honest with you. Sometimes I would have to be like, is this the same conversation or dialogue, or you know what I mean? And it's so weird now watching full chunks of like Hannah's exchanges with people. And I can hear sometimes myself that like I really recorded it one sentence at a time, you know what I mean? Or one response at a time versus just like a natural conversation. But it's an interesting process. But I imagine it's the only way you can do it because there are different options, you know what I mean, in the conversation. So
yeah, that does make sense, and that's similar to what the other voice actors have told me in terms of that they were doing the sessions on their own. But I do have to ask you, do you remember crossing paths with anyone before entering the studio?
never.
No.
Shockingly, never. I have met Orvalle and Sarah
Yeah.
after the fact. We did like a little 3-person playing the game together live stream thing or whatnot, and they're wonderful people. I adore both of them very, very much, and hope to work with them in another capacity in the future and actually like get to work with them because they both seem absolutely wonderful. But no, I never crossed paths with anybody.
Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, I've spoken to Sarah before when I was in the industry years ago, and I was one of the first people to do an interview with her on Life is Strange too. And Orval, it just speaks for himself how incredible that human being is.
I know, seriously.
I know, like as anyone watching this as well, just a bit of context and kind of completely. I once went on his Instagram and he had a shirt which said, "I am Orval Williams and I'm the best actor in the world," and on the back of it, it had his Twitter handle, and I was like, there's only a certain level of swag someone can have to pull that off. And it was like, it had to be him. I was like,
100% agree.
Makes perfect sense. So whilst we're in the studio booth as well, some of the actors have talked about their experience meeting Michel, who was the co-director on Life is Strange 2. He's usually over like a Skype call. Was he there for your sessions?
He was. Yeah, he was always Skyped in with us. And he was wonderful as well. He was awesome. Yeah.
Did he provide any personal feedback at any point to you about the character or any lines?
He did. He actually did. Because the first session I had with them, we actually re-recorded. Because like actors, we go up an octave sometimes when we're performing, you know what I mean? We put on our actor voice and all of a sudden it's like this. And the first time I went in, I 100% did that. And he was super kind about it, but he was like, I want you to do what you did in the audition. And him and Phil played it for me again. And Michelle was like a part of all of that. And he was like, we just want you to be at that level. So we actually re-recorded it. And Michelle was very kind about it. And anytime that I did start to do that again, he would jump in and he would be like, can we do it again a little bit like lower your natural octave or whatever was speaking. He was super nice.
I imagine so. He is a really nice person. I've seen him watch some of these interviews as well. So, and I would love to interview him at some point, but you never know. But we're on here, and before we leave the studio booth as well, I have to ask you, what was your favorite moment to record? Like, is there a standout memory in the booth?
Standout memories in the booth. There were definitely a couple standout memories. Not that they were my favorite ones, but a lot of making different noises for trimming weed. I didn't know that there could be so many different responses as you trim weed, like vocally. So that was a memorable moment in the studio. Any conversation that was about Black Flag, her dog, were always my favorite because, like I said before, I had a dog, so it was very easy, or have a dog, so it was very easy to like drop in and be natural with those moments because, everybody loves their dog.
Oh, exactly. Of course. And well, without the booth. So you mentioned it before as well, the topless scene with Hannah. What was your reaction like when you actually saw that eventually?
That she's a badass. Like when I saw it, I was like, oh, not in the context I thought it was going to be, but like in the better context that it should, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's just like, I saw it and I was like, man, I wish I was that cool with myself that I was just like, yeah, this is this is my body. You take your shirt off, I take my shirt off. Who cares?
Oh no, it makes sense. I felt like it fitted with the actual campsite, like all the hippies and everything else. And when I saw it, I was like, oh wow. I was like, that was a bit striking. I didn't expect it, but then I was like, yeah. And then she's just getting in Sean's face. And I was like, okay. I was like, I like this character. I like this character.
Right? No shame at all from Hannah.
No, and she shouldn't have to either. Like, so with Hannah as well, we find out more episode 3 goes on. She's a very complex character. There's like a big backstory of her. What was your thoughts when you learned like that was the character that you were playing? That it was just more than just a person that's just brash and, confrontational.
Honestly, I actually got that vibe from Hannah the whole time. Like she seemed, and especially once I saw what she looked like, I was like, oh, this is a very multi-layered character. Like she's very much not a single thing or defined by a single thing. Like, conversations about her sexuality were like, surprising and not. She was just very comfortable being anything and everything that she felt at that moment. You know what I mean? So nothing actually kind of surprised me for her, because I felt like every little detail about her, down from like the way she dressed to taking off her clothes to her, sexual preferences or lack thereof, you know what I mean? That everything was just kind of like, I don't have to have a specific label on anything. Is just the way that she seemed. So nothing was a shocker.
No, I liked her as well. And like, as I said, like when you see more and you kind of see like her character play out with Sean and like how she doesn't become less confrontational, well, how she can become less confrontational depending on choice. I'd like that. But obviously we kind of mentioned it before earlier, and this is where Cassidy, at the same time, Hannah has very big beef with Cassidy. What was your reaction like with that, with like those two characters kind of like butting heads at different points during the episode?
Well, honestly, when I recorded it, I assumed, because I hadn't seen Cassidy, that they were just very different types of people, and I didn't know any of Cassidy's dialogue either, so I just assumed that Cassidy was totally different than her. But honestly, then when I watched some of it and saw Cassidy, it actually seemed more of like an intimidation kind of thing with each other, because I thought they actually had a lot of similarities and similar qualities, and it was more about being an alpha dog.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense as well. And they are very, very different characters. So I can understand where they built that dynamic from with Hannah and Cassidy. And obviously, this was the main episode that Hannah features in. But was there any interest on your part to kind of see where she played out in episode 4, like the story that they told for these characters? Or was it just kind of like you were like, I'm done with this at this point?
Wait, what do you mean? I'm like, because I have to remember the episodes as well. It's also been a very long time.
After episode 3, they'll do the campsite, everything happens, then obviously Sean ends up in hospital. I'm more suggesting in the kind of terms like, did you have any interest to see what happens post episode 3 in terms of the story, and including what happens to Hannah as well?
Oh, totally. But just because, honestly, I think they were all really great characters, and I kind of just wanted, honestly, I wanted to see all of their relationships with each other in general. Like, I know there were multiple different endings and possible outcomes of the way things could happen. And I mean, I'm sure there are players out there who do know every possible ending and outcome. I do not. I really only know the one that we like played when us three played together. But yeah, I think I actually wish that they were doing a second season of that specific one. I know that's not really what they do, but there were just so many characters with so many interesting backstories, and each one really added to the story, in my opinion. So I would like to know what has continued on with all of them.
Oh no, I feel for you as well, because like in the comics, they're kind of like they're mingling with the characters. Like Brody, the big guy from the first 2 episodes, he appears in the comic series, so they're kind of like just mixing around. But obviously, I think like with where I imagine the series is going to go, and the next Life is Strange, it'll probably be in a different universe. Different setting, different characters, and that kind of makes sense with what they're doing. But we'll kind of go on to my favorite question, which is, what is your favorite thing about Hannah and why? And is there anything you wish that the developers had focused on more with the character?
Oh man, I mean, honestly, my favorite thing about her is that she is so many things at once, and like really owns that, which I think that is very much a struggle of current times that we're trying to evolve from. But like having the ability and being comfortable by not being defined by one thing but multiple things, even if they seem like conflicting, you know what I mean? Like you can be so many different things, and I think Hannah is very much a reflection of that, and and I think that's super cool and very, very inspiring. I just honestly, I don't know if there's one specific thing I wish they went in more detail on. I just honestly wanted more time with Hannah. You know what I mean? In general, just because I think she had a lot to offer and teach people or inspire in them and her peers or whatever. And kind of her let down her walls with more of the characters, you know?
Oh no, I completely understand that. A lot of the characters you met in the campsite, I was like, I wish I had more time with like Cassidy, Hannah, Penny. Like you just kind of like have that one episode and kind of like it's done after that, which was a bit of a shame on my part. But completely understand that. But I have to ask you, what's your favorite scene from Life is Strange 2 and why? Any scene?
Honestly, probably the campsite scene. Like, I mean, I know that's like a long scene and there's multiple different like entrances and exits or conversations during it. But I think at least what I've seen or worked through in that environment or setting, it was like the most conversational they all were with each other, whether it was like joking around or it just seemed the most like real group of friends and peers getting together around a fire and being different, but also being like cool with their differences and like being able to laugh at each other while also get deep with each other and it go kind of back and forth. So I just loved that whole scene in general.
Oh no, absolutely. The episode 3 was one of my favorites in that entire 5-episode arc, which is cool, and I completely understand that. And we're sticking with that actually because you mentioned it. Campsite, Hannah, and you have a bunch of other colourful characters there. Aside from Hannah, which would be your favorite character out of that bunch and why?
I mean, honestly, probably Pennywise because I really just adore Orvalle. I do. I think, and it's already a great character, but then once you know him as well, it just makes that character even better the way that he like played and said certain lines and he's just a delightful human being. And I think it shows in that character.
Oh no, I completely agree. It's a very good shout as well because obviously I love Cassidy, but like, you know, with when I met Orvalle on this series and it was really early on, I think it's like maybe was it 4th episode? I think maybe the 4th episode of this series. Like, I was like, he's just an incredible human being. And I was like, I completely, yeah. So I completely understand that. Fair point. But with Life is Strange 2 as well, did you ever have the chance to sit down, play through it, or watch it in its entirety?
No, only the time that we
Did the stream?
Yeah, I had friends who did it and kind of like told me about it that were more into video games and that form of video games. I didn't even know that form of video games existed before doing it. Like I didn't know that people were doing like computer episodic games on their computers or phones or whatever. I didn't even know. Really out of the loop. But I still would really like to, and I would actually like to go back and do Life is Strange, the first, season of it all as well. I take that back. I think I actually did do the first episode of the first season of Life is Strange.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And, but I haven't gone back and done any, and I don't even know when or how I did that, but I'm pretty sure that I did do that. But I would like to go back and do that all because I think the concept of the game and I think they're just so progressive with their storylines. I think Michel and them are, fabulous and what they're doing with the games are really awesome.
Oh, no, absolutely. And we kind of mentioned it a lot throughout this as well. You had that chance to go to the Square Enix live stream and you met Orvalle, you met Sarah. What was it like to have the opportunity to meet them in person, kind of like break away from just being a voice in the studio and then obviously sitting down playing the game in front of like thousands of fans as well?
Totally awesome. Because it's the oddest thing with voiceover stuff, or at least the voiceover stuff I've done, is like creating a product together in general is such like a bonding experience, but then bonding with those people without actually ever meeting those people is such a weird thing. But it's like, that you have that shared warm spot about that project. You know what I mean? So when you actually get together, it really makes it feel so much more whole. And and we just naturally all clicked and enjoyed each other. So it was really wonderful. I would love to meet the other characters as well. Like they feel so far away and I'm like, oh, me, Sarah and Orvalle, we all know each other. We did this project together.
Oh no, I know what you mean by that because like some of the actors on across this series, I've known that some really have met each other and kind of come close, and then some of them haven't even had any experience with them. So I completely expect that. But as well with that stream as well, you met Dayeanne Hutton, who's been on this show as well, the lovely Dayeanne Hutton. What was it like meeting someone who's obviously been linked with the series from the very beginning, and then just having that experience, to kind of like just stream the game with her?
It was great post the fact because I didn't even realize until like halfway through that day when we were there that I was like, oh, was she in the first season? Like I'm picking up on some hints that she may have been in the first season. Like literally had no idea. I had no idea. Half the time I'm like, does everybody assume that we know these things? We do not know these things unless we're told. Like I had no idea. And then confirmed like after the fact when I like stalked her on social media and I was like, oh, she was definitely in the first season. Definitely in the first season. She was wonderful as well, though. She was awesome.
Oh, she's incredible. Like, most lovable human being I've ever met. And I'm more, I appreciate the fact that you're honest with that as well, because people are like, yeah, I've played the series. And it's like, have you? And it's like, but
Nope.
honest, makes sense. But we'll move away from Life is Strange 2 for the minute. So we want to kind of come on to how's life been post Life is Strange 2? Obviously, we're in COVID and stuff, but has there been any favorite projects you've worked on since Life is Strange 2?
I mean, it's still been good. Obviously, it's been a weird past year for, the entire world. So that aside, because we all know that, it's still actually been good. It's actually been nice to kind of, I've spent COVID here in Kentucky with my family, and it's actually been nice to kind of like take a break from Los Angeles for a little bit and like just kind of chill out for a bit. And I have been fortunate enough to still do some work during this time. And I have done dubbing for a while with like, I guess it's their sister company. I don't really know. They all work at the same studio. I have no idea. But, and that has been awesome. Obviously, that's a lot of that broke or took a lot of pauses during this time. But for the first time ever, I got to record VO dubbing in Cincinnati, which is like, I'm very northern Kentucky, so basically in my hometown, which would have never happened if it wasn't for, COVID and the pandemic. And that was honestly really cool to be able to stay here and work on one of those projects and meet different engineers here and work in a different studio here. So that was really cool. And also because of COVID, I got to do a film in Kentucky, which I never would have gotten to do had I been out in Los Angeles. So there have definitely been like some silver linings career-wise with, things going on. Obviously not like big paying gigs, but still cool, unique work experiences that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Oh no, I completely understand that, and I think like one of my favorite things with when I was stalking through your IMDb profile was that you've carried over that VO experience of like from Life is Strange 2, and specifically like Netflix's The Protector. So you've been doing VO dubbing and that. It must have been like invaluable experience having that Life is Strange 2 voiceover experience for a role like that.
100%. I actually started The Protector though before I did Life is Strange, but honestly, they're so completely different types of recording, and I had never done either, and both equally difficult. Like they're such invaluable skills, and it have made me tremendously a better actor. Like having done those outside of the booth and inside of the booth. So, yeah, they've both been invaluable completely.
Yeah, and that does make sense as well with the dates as well. I always get a wrong feeling like they're done at the same time, but like no. But yeah, as well with that, you've had that VO experience in like The Protector and Life is Strange. But has there been any kind of like on your side auditions for any other VO projects in gaming specifically? Have you had anything come up on your end?
I don't think so for gaming. And a lot of the stuff with the dubbing, because I've worked with them so much on that now that it's more so like if I'm in town and there's something right, they'll just let me come in and do it. Or if they have like extra roles that they're trying to fill really quickly or whatnot, they'll call people that they know or anything like that. I don't think anything video game. They did try to get me in on some animation stuff. Phil tried to get I think he tried to get me as many auditions for this project as possible. I felt like that he could, and I just was not getting it right. But I really appreciated that Phil tried. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but it was a really cool animation project, and I wish it would have worked out maybe in the future. But I did recently do an audition for like voiceover for an entire film, which I thought was really interesting. So
Nice.
that was recent, so we'll still see if anything comes from that. And if not, either way, I've never done that before. It was cool. So yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And either way, like VO work in any kind of role is cool, and the film does sound interesting, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah.
I have to ask you as well, because like all the actors I bring on, they've had experiences different because of COVID, and like they've been doing things to kind of improve themselves, where it's like Zoom help classes or anything else. Have you been doing anything to kind of like improve a certain area of your acting, or like anything to keep yourself occupied in between this?
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen my social media, I probably, like, potentially, if you've watched my stories, I've annoyed you with my 100 days of movement that I'm attempting to do. And I have to post it because I swear on my life I won't do it unless I post about it. The first day I was like, just post a picture. And then I was like, no, because then I can fake it and like look like I just worked out. So I already knew that my brain like I couldn't do that. So I'm trying to do that. I'm not a workout person. I skipped yesterday. I'm making up for it today. So it's kind of going well. And aside from that, acting wise, I mean, everything is self-tape now. So I'm trying to do a lot more self-tapes even on my own, just for the sake of doing them, just to kind of, in some ways, have fun with self-tapes and find a way to really enjoy them, and different characters that like I don't always get asked to audition for. And I actually have still been I do theater a lot. That's, I love theater. And I've been working with a theater company actually in Cincinnati during this time, which is really, really interesting. It's a very improvisational, experimental theater group, and we're doing it in COVID, so like none of us can get within 6 feet of each other. We all wear masks the entire time. I didn't know what a lot of these people looked like, like I'd never met any of these people, so it was like I only knew what their eyes looked like, even though we're on a break now because COVID numbers went up. But either way, that has been a really cool experience, because doing completely experimental theater is like, and not having any lines and like creating it from the ground up it's definitely a challenge. I wasn't expecting to be as difficult as it is, but it's been really cool.
It does sound crazy, that. Like, I completely understand with you when you're saying someone's wearing a mask, you can't see them, because I walked past my hairdresser, she said hi to me, and I just like ignored her, and I had to like go up to like a couple of weeks later, I was like, I'm sorry, it's like, I didn't mean it like that. I was like, I just didn't know who was who. So I completely relate on that, but I have to bring you up on the workout thing. What got you into that? Because like, I'm currently trying to lose weight again, and I hate exercise, so like, what's made you motivate you? And I appreciate the fact that you're honest about not just posting a picture, you have to post the videos, like kind of a proof.
Yeah. I very much do. If I start posting a picture, you will know that I'm up to it. Truly. Actually, a friend of mine started doing it, and I don't know, after so many days went by that she was committed to it. Like, I honestly, when she started doing it, I was like, we all try this. It's not going to work. But then she got to a certain amount of days that I was like, oh man, this is really working for her. And like, good for her to commit to something like that. Like I can't commit to that kind of stuff, especially fitness wise. So yeah, and I just I'm not moving like nearly as much as I used to, you know what I mean? Like, there are things happening on my body that have not happened before because I'm not moving. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should give it a go. And I'm not getting any younger, so that'll work out.
You've ruined the input for my next sentence, because I was going to say, you're still a very young actor, and you are still young as well. What?
I'll lie to you.
who for you, like, you've got so much ahead in the future of this industry, like, who's the dream actor you'd want to work with before you, like, we're done?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many. But I will say, oddly, so many that I want to work with are actually more so like peer in my age group. Like, I mean, because obviously who wouldn't want to work with the greats, like all of those A-list actors and things like that. I would feel hugely privileged to do that. But there's like Juno Temple is somebody that I think she is a fabulous actress. And she's still really, her name is still slowly becoming something bigger. But I've always been fascinated with her work. I think she can do so many different things. And she's within my age range. And I love people who are, more my peers in this industry, because we're going through current situations and seeing them be able to inhabit certain things that I feel like I can't. I'm like very fascinated by them. and would love to work with them. So she's one. And this is not a popular pick by most people, but Kristen Stewart is also somebody I would love to work with. I know that's, some people are like, what? Garbage. I don't think she's garbage. I think she's a hidden gem. So I would like to work with her as well. I think she's always very natural, and I would like to understand that. Yeah.
She just gets a bad rep for Twilight mainly, so I kind of like...
Exactly. I'm like, clearly everybody who doesn't like her has not seen any of her independent work, because it's fabulous. Gosh, those are two big ones. And a bunch of like female comedic actresses I would want to work with, because I want to hang out with them. Totally. That's about it. I'm sure they're not thinking of them at the moment.
Oh, they were very, very good choices, and very interesting choices as well. Very different across the board of them. And I have to ask you as well, because I was reading up before all this episode and everything else, I was reading up on like an old interview you did, and they asked you in that as well, what advice would you give to an up-and-coming actor? But because of where we're at now, you've had that VO experience in like Life is Strange, you've worked on like VO dubbing in TV series, and like where you are with your career now, what kind of like, where would you stand on like giving advice for an up-and-coming actor? Would you have changed away from where you like originally? So what would you say to them based on the experience that you've had so far?
Well, one, I have no idea what I said in that previous interview.
Don't
even tell me. I don't even want to know. I'm sure it was something ignorant. But anyway, well, I mean, it's tough because then I'm sure that I was coming from, because it's so easy to get bitter in this industry, and it's so easy to give bitter advice that's really, deflecting from personal things. But because of that, and in this time of like, the pandemic, and really taking time off and really focusing on, what you love and what brings you joy and all of that kind of stuff, I would really I wouldn't give any specific industry advice, because everything is different for everybody. Truly, 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 everything is different. But I would really just say to constantly make sure that you're like enjoying and having fun, and that really everything that you do to find why you love it and bring that to any experience, whether it's a self-tape or, a shitty little project that you're like, is this really worth my time? Like, there is something, you love what you do for a reason, you know what I mean? And bring that to the table. And if it doesn't become fun or enjoyable anymore, then either take a break or self-reflect, or, you know what I mean? Or I don't know, take time off, but it should always be fun. It's too tough of an industry to not be fun.
Oh, I completely understand that as well, because you have to take those rejections, because otherwise it's like, you're not going to enjoy it. And you kind of have to be like, you can't be too direct with your advice as well, because then you set expectations, but someone's kind of get knocked down really hard. So I agree with where you're saying, like, just the main thing is like keeping fun with it. So Hannah, we're coming towards the end of this as well, and I've got two questions before we wrap up. So apparently there's a Life is Strange TV show in production. God only knows when this comes. Yeah, but it's been in production for like years, or it's been like announced for years. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't even know if it's animation or not, but well, from what I can remember. But I know you'd love to play Hannah in that, but you're not allowed to. So instead, I'm putting you in the role of the casting director. Who would you cast for Hannah, and why? I'm going to give you unlimited budget as well for this.
Well, actually, I don't know, and I mean that in the best way, because there is a serious underrepresentation of Native American, in the industry, like hugely. Yeah. I think we can all agree, and that's very obvious. So actually, in an excited way, I can say I have no clue, because that means there is possibility of people up and coming in that. So I hope that they would remain true to that, because there needs to be more. You know what I mean? And there are probably some incredible actors out there that we don't know. So fortunately, I have no clue, and it could be really great.
No, I respect your honesty, and yeah, you're right as well, because like, to pick out a Native American actor, I don't think anyone would be able to pull that out on the streets if you ever met them.
Absolutely, at least not 100%. You know, and there may be somebody that is partly Native American, but that's not even jumping the mind immediately. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh no, cool. Completely understand. So Hannah, we're at the end of the show as well. I usually let my guests have a message sent to the community. I'll let you take it from here. Cool.
Well, kind of going off with the advice that I had said before, I think this time it's so important to like find your joy during this time. That's been a subject that I've been really fascinated with recently, for whatever reason, is that finding your joy, especially in these awkward, tough times, and like really finding a way to be at peace and happiness within yourself when everything else in the world seems a little amok. So, just find your joy today and tomorrow.
Oh, of course. No, thank you very much for a wonderful message. That's brilliant. And guys, we're at the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, rating, subscribe, do all that stuff. It just helps my channel. Hannah, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. This was like the highlight of my week.
Oh, no, of course. It was brilliant to have you on here. And I was really excited and learned so much as well about you applying for Cassidy and everything else. Just really interesting. So, yeah, guys, if you enjoyed it, do leave a rating, and it really does help the channel. Stay tuned. There'll be more Life is Strange content to come. A wonderful guest on today. More to come. Take care.